Today's second panel is about the art fair as mega event, and the session is about aims to contributing to common discussion about the art fair's multiple facets and roles. And the panel will be moderated by Emin Mahir Balcıoğlu, who is contemporary Istanbul advisor to the chairman, and our speakers are Eileen Kinsel, who is Artnet, the senior market reporter at Artnet News, and the Kerimcan Güleryüz, who is the Empire Project gallery owner. And wish you a pleasant time.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Before beginning, I'd like to send our most heartfelt condolences to our French friends that are participating to the fair for the horrible events that have happened yesterday in Paris. It's the kind of thing that affects all of us. It's not anymore something that is isolated to a geography, but we all suffer from these things, and I hope the French will recover from this terrible shock and that we won't have similar events in the future. I don't want to create a gloomy atmosphere, but it is really very sad. Today we're going to discuss the fairs, art fairs. I had the privilege of being the director of this fair for 3 years until 2011, and I still love to come back here every year. Fairs for me are unlike other fairs, unlike other category of fairs, art fairs are a great opportunity to gauge the latest developments in the art world. They're much more effective than museums or any temporary exhibition that you may come up with because of its actuality. You can see artwork here that has been produced in the last few months even. So it's a great opportunity to follow on the latest trends. I've always considered art fairs as a big exhibition curated by a multitude of curators because each gallery has a different approach, different art that you can see. Fairs are wonderful opportunities for people to come together, networking. Yes, it is meant for sale, but more than its commercial value, I think fairs are a very, very valuable place where you interact, where different cultures can come together. People meet, artists can explain their artwork, meet collectors, the end users of the art product, and of course, gallerists, everyone concerned, writers have an opportunity to see the latest trends as well. From this perspective, I would like to now give the floor to Eileen, who has been writing extensively about art. She's a journalist specialized in the art world. So let's take her perspective of what art fairs are.
Hi, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay in the back? I thought it might be interesting to talk about one of the really early initial models for the art fair, which happened in 1998 when there was a serious recession going on and a lot of gallerists felt that there was no demand for art and it was really tough to make sales or build a gallery. And a number of New York gallerists got together and formed what they called the Gramercy International Art Fair. And they rented out individual rooms at the Gramercy Hotel in New York City. And dealers would fly in and they would actually sleep at night in the hotel room that they rented. And they weren't allowed to put nails in the wall. So you'd walk from room to room and you'd see artworks propped up on a bed or in the bathroom. And it was very exciting, it was very unique, it was very educational. There was a real sense of camaraderie about coming together under difficult circumstances and trying to make the best of it. After a number of years, that fair has now evolved into the Armory Show, which takes place every March in Manhattan, and that's about one of the biggest art fairs in the world. It's hugely international. There's exhibitors from all over the world. And what I see is that even though that fair has become so big and so commercial, and I'm not knocking it at all, I love it, it's great, that model, that original model that dealers embraced seems to have sprung up everywhere in terms of satellite fairs. In Miami, you probably have a dozen satellite fairs around Art Basel and Miami Beach. And it just makes me think of something maybe in terms of like the music business, where somebody starts out really small as an indie artist, and you progress, and maybe you achieve fame and stardom and wealth, and you move on to another level. I think it's encouraging that the energy that surrounded that initial fair is still happening and still springing up at satellite fairs, because to me it's just, it's an evolution, and it's a good one. Do you want to take over or say anything about that?
Sure. I've had the privilege of doing this fair from its first edition onwards, so it's now, 10 years now running. And CI really, for the Istanbul, or let's call it the Turkish scene, was really something that was necessary. In an emerging market, what's really necessary to understand is the term can be misleading, because when we say emerging market, a lot of people seem to think that we're talking about the art, not necessarily the infrastructure. And I think specifically now, the role of the fair is much more important in the life cycle of a gallery. And when Istanbul didn't necessarily have such a proper internationally thinking fair structure, CI really filled this crucial gap. And what we've seen is really over the years a fair that's kind of learned and gone through the woods through this full activity, and is now, I'm happy to say, is truly now an international art fair. Now, what's interesting about that is the fact that we've also entered a time in which the amount of people who now go through and actually visit galleries specifically on their location has become limited. And now galleries really have to find themselves going to where the people are going. Hence, the fair has become this necessity, this important hub, where that is a positive thing. Unfortunately, now it's become a fair circuit, and it's actually quite a lot of galleries we see nowadays are almost, the gallery owner themselves are usually on the road doing, it's almost like a concert series. And so I think it's interesting to see how this is changing both the way the content is presented by the gallery, what the gallery focuses on showing, why they might show what they show, because of either you're looking for cultural legitimacy, or are you looking to cover your costs. So that transition that you mentioned into what now then developed into the Armory, and Miami has, last I checked, I thought it was like 30 satellite fairs almost.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And Art Basel itself, the primary fair, has also got quite a number of fairs. And it's interesting to see us in Istanbul now with two fairs, and I'm curious as to how this is going to kind of continue to grow in this economic climate and in this kind of market industry. But I think it's important to kind of think about what the future role of the fairs should be, possibly.
Well, I think having been involved in this fair for several years, actually, even before I was director, it's such a hard job to really put a fair like this on the map. It's really it's like a mission impossible, because there's so many different mechanisms that are in play, and not to mention prejudices as well. Prejudices relative to new art destinations. I mean, not just 20 years ago we were discussing the issue of marginality of the art centers in the world, and the remaining parts being marginalized and looked down by the center. And when I say center versus the margin, I'm not talking about east-west. It's about the center and everywhere else. It could be Brazil, it could be Turkey, it could be China. And we've seen a great evolution the last 20 years of this mechanism changing, of these, as we said, emerging markets, emerging art scenes that have come up and sort of proven their own sort of validity in terms of their content, A case in point is Art Dubai, for example. The first time I went to Art Dubai 5 years ago, I was very impressed. It's a small fair, but you're exposed to a totally new kind of art, which is the Middle Eastern art, African art, which, frankly, to that day, I hadn't been able to see before. And suddenly you see this very strong art. When I say strong, it has incredible content. These people are dealing with the artists in these countries are dealing with extreme conditions. They're dealing with very compelling issues. And it's reflected in their art. So it's very, very interesting. I was very sort of taken by surprise by this wonderful new art that I wasn't aware of. So it did open a new door to me. So going back to Istanbul, I mean, Istanbul, it's very hard to attract, for example, foreign galleries, foreign collectors to come, because they're not used to it. I mean, they're used to they go to Armory, they go to Art Basel. Where's Istanbul, you know? And so it's really hard to break these prejudices as well, and to bring the quality of the fair up in time. So it's a big challenge, and I think in the last 4 or 5 years, so I don't take credit for it, I wasn't here, they did a great job. I think the fair has evolved in the right direction. Its ambition is to become, in 10 years' time, one of the most important fairs in the world. I think it will achieve that. But in terms of new art destinations, Istanbul is a good example, because it's not just the fair. Of course, we have the opening of several museums, international exhibitions coming to Istanbul, which is something I dreamed of back in the 90s. We didn't have museum infrastructure that would enable that to happen. But more important is the Biennale, of course. The Biennale of Istanbul has been a very important magnet of people to come to Istanbul to live an artistic experience. So maybe from this perspective of maybe if you want to comment about the relationship between the center and these emerging markets and how it's reflected on the fairs, I don't know, Kerimcan, you want to take it from there?
I'll roll it off. You touched on something that I think is one of the most primary concerns with such an influx of fairs. We have to, first of all, I think, when we look at a fair, we have to understand exactly what is it trying to accomplish. Why do you want to go there? With the galleries now having to find this venue to bring in the crowd, to make their operation financially stable, they're having to go throughout the world to chase, as I said, there are gallerists who hardly spend time in their galleries. But what that's creating is that, first of all, for a commercial expectancy, they'll create a gallery which has also got things constantly in motion, in crates, and usually that will be like a product. So if the gallery is doing a multiplicity of shows, what you'll see is this kind of product run, which I find a little maybe disappointing if I was an active collector following these fairs. I would hate to constantly keep going and seeing the same kind of stuff repeated. And so when galleries are moving around, I think it's really crucial to kind of take into consideration which fair you're doing, why you're doing it, what the content of that fair is, and are you bringing something special to the table. So there is a job that the gallery needs to be doing in the first place. But before that is actually the fair actually taking a responsibility. And we see ourselves specifically in the matter of CI in this kind of a vacuum of sorts, where we need to really kind of put an identity, and hence that's why I think it's really important that this year this focus on Tehran of CI, this is something I've championed for a long time, is that we need to kind of create, I found Art Dubai to be a little gift shoppy, a little too kind of well presented and well curated specific shows, but really trying to cater to a specific kind of client without really having that kind of, in the fair itself, cultural legitimacy. But with the Sharjah next to it, those are great things. And I think what CI has in that consideration to have to think about is really what is it specifically, clearly, that's going to attract an international collector here? Why are these artists here together? And what does it answer? These chain of events do affect this quality. And what we've seen here this year, which was something that made me quite happy, was when we looked at Frieze versus the Sabancı Museum show, where Frieze focused on Zero, and the Sabancı Museum had already brought in this fantastic show. So in a weird way, now we're starting to see Istanbul really starting to both look at the game in a global sense, but now having to explore the area of what its personal content is and what kind of massive of international collector it's going to affect, and why are they going to come here to see what specifically. So I see the role of kind of CI growing, and that's something I'm quite excited about. Now, what the future will bring is anyone's guess. But
I mean, I have to say that I spoke to a major dealer once who was complaining to me about art fairs because he said, well, there's no context. You know, you just go in and you see a booth. And I mean, I would beg to differ, because over the course of my career, I found them to be very educational if you're curious and if you're looking. Because if you love art, you look at it anywhere that you want to or can, and whether it's a museum or a gallery or a fair. And if you're constantly looking and you're really paying attention, you start to educate your eye and educate your tastes. And to come here, having been to many art fairs, it was really refreshing for me to see local Turkish artists displayed alongside, you walk in and you see Miro in one booth, and then you come in and you see and you look and you ask the gallerist what it's about. And to me, that's just very encouraging. And I just think that, as opposed to the sense that there's no context, yes, there is, and that context, it seems like dealers embrace and continue to build upon. I mean, just talking with different dealers, my question to them was, why does this fair appeal to you, and what did you bring and why? And everything that they answered seemed to support that notion of, yeah, we're hoping to take advantage of an international audience, but also just trying to promote and draw attention to local artists who it seems very much deserve that. One thing that I wanted to ask you, if you find to be true, I mean, I almost wonder if art fairs are not a better deal or a better bet for a smaller, younger gallery, as opposed to somebody like Pace or Werner that I know has a dedicated fair person. I just wonder, when you're that big of a gallery and the scale is so large, how much does it pay? And I don't think that it's a huge consideration for their costs to send somebody to, Istanbul or Dubai.
Generally, those kind of galleries, the primary galleries actually get specifically discounts, or actually sometimes they're comped.
Okay.
So you'll have very important primary galleries, which the fair wants. So for them, it's really more or less just a matter of logistics.
Like promotion or something.
Promotion and shipping the artwork. Whereas the financial burden might come onto the smaller gallery.
Yeah.
But the fair does present, like I said, I mean, the lack of now people who are actually visiting the galleries on the ground, and art now starting to really change, rather than just being something beautiful that's being shared, is now truly now a status symbol. So when you talk about a very important primary gallery, those are the big trophies. So that's what the collector is specifically going to be looking for. The collector wants their name known by those specific people. They want to be a member of that country club. It is exciting. Specifically, I completely agree that I think the art fair works best at the end of the day, potentially for a good young startup gallery.
Yeah.
But that's really a massive business endeavor, because that's, the young gallery is at their first part of their career, the first 3 years, which is like the complete losing game. You're not really making money, we're calling it investing, or your partners might be saying, we're losing money. But at the end of the day, a properly selected, good international fair, which helps to place you well, is always going to be an advantage. One of my personal favorites is Unseen in Amsterdam, which shows, like its name, I mean, it's an interesting fair because it's both kind of semi-curated by the Foam Museum, It's showing unseen photography, but it's got a very international perspective, but it's tiny, technically speaking. It's 50 galleries. And that kind of an exposure, and that kind of a niche art fair, I think is something specifically that will be further and further the future of fairs. I think this kind of massive buying thing, that's going to start to get a little limited.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's only so much it can take. So you'll move into, you know, Basel is always going to be the primary.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have kind of continental primary fairs, which you're really going to want to go into. But I see the fairs now going to maybe potentially to survive, turn into real cultural activities rather than just marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's the vocation. I mean, that's why we're having this panel. we want to sort of expand the narrative and have a more sort of in-depth. It wants to have a more complex mission than just selling art here. That's what I said in the beginning anyway. But I'd like to shift our focus now to another area. Since we were talking about emerging markets. Emerging markets means you have new people with money who are not collectors, who do not have that in their sort of traditional background. How do fairs affect these people? Are fairs a good ground to convert this new bourgeoisie into collectors and expand the market as such, with more galleries opening up? I have seen this phenomenon in a very, very blatant way in Dubai. When I first went there in 2011, the amount of galleries in Dubai was less than the fingers on my hand. Now there are like 20 or 30 galleries. Suddenly you've created an art market in just 4 years' time. So I think it has had a great effect. Yes, also the Sharjah Biennale, which is basically a 20-minute drive from Dubai, has been instrumental. But I think the fair itself has created this new sort of reality in Dubai that you have so many galleries now, and they're very good galleries too. By the way, I've visited some of them.
The only problem that I've seen in the Dubai construct, though, is quite a lot of the galleries currently are very much so unhappy because there's not a lot of traffic without the fair.
Yeah.
It has been the concern. So quite, you know, the fair has created the kind of a semblance, a mirage of an art scene, which is also, I think, kind of generally could be dangerous and slightly misleading.
Okay, so that's very good. That's exactly what I wanted for you to speak about. I think the problem with the Gulf, of course, is that, like, I live in Qatar, and it's a very gloomy atmosphere. The moment the barrel of oil goes down below $80, everybody gets, you know, the whole market changes, and the whole investments in not just culture but everything comes to a standstill. So I think it's a cyclic thing as well that may have affected Dubai, although Dubai is not an oil emirate anymore. I mean, its GDP is primarily from other areas. They've been successful in detaching themselves from the oil revenue thing, but because they don't have any left anyway. But I think, now going back to the general sort of perspective of Istanbul, Sao Paulo, these places, my question is really to you, is do you think that these fairs have had any influence in converting these new emerging people in society to become collectors? I mean, CI has made a great effort. It's gone out to other cities in the country, doing seminars, convincing these new people to become collectors, not just as part of being a sort of affluent middle-class person, but rather also telling them that in a way it's also a good investment, and it becomes a good it's a passion that they will acquire. That collecting is like a disease. Once you catch it, it'll evolve. So from that perspective, from a gallerist's point of view and from a journalist's point of view, how do you see this? Do you think there's this kind of effect?
I feel that there's still enormous resistance, that people are very intimidated by collecting art, even wealthy people and, you know, well-to-do. I find that there's kind of a very small group of collectors, even on an international basis, who go to Basel, Miami, and to the Armory Show and to the satellite fairs. And I don't know if it has something to do with that. It seems that there's sometimes this like rapid trajectory that happens when an artist or sort of a scene gets discovered, that it just immediately, it seems like it takes, you know, one article in Art News or ArtNet to talk about how hot this artist is, and all of a sudden the prices are going through the roof. And I just wonder if there's some way to maybe contain that in some kind of a middle ground where people can get comfortable with a particular
you mean a much
artist.
more balanced playing field in that way?
Yeah, I do, because I mean, I've just seen it time and again happen where I would imagine as an outsider it's very intimidating to watch, like, oh, all of a sudden this artist is so hot that you can't get them, like their prices soar at auction. And I feel like that happens over and over again. And ideally for a city like Istanbul that is trying to get more recognition and cultivate more collectors, it would be really nice if it would happen in a sort of moderate way where people could get comfortable with names and get comfortable with the art scene before it's like, oh, yeah, you're only buying on an international level, or only the wealthiest people in Istanbul are buying. I'm not saying I know how to stop that. I'm just saying as a journalist, that's a trend I observe over and over again, and it's a little bit disconcerting.
Specifically on your comment of an issue like soaring prices, I think that's kind of indicative of the new type of collector that's entering the scene. You know, to go to your original question in the terms of does it affect change in its environment? One thing that you have to understand, and it's one of my favorite words, is when I talk about the country club aspect of it, is that art is a very interesting medium in the sense that the purchase of it suddenly is an inclusion into a world like no other. I mean, you don't necessarily suddenly get invited to the Booker Prize Awards when you buy a soft or a hardcover book. You know, there's no inclusion into some kind of music industry because you happen to have a great collection of David Bowie records. But in the art sense of it, the purchase of art is this very bizarre thing in the sense that you can have, like, from a local example, we can talk about, you know, Hasan Bey, who lives in Kayseri, who happens to be a great bottle manufacturer. Now, he knows a certain group of people specific to his industry. He knows the machinery guy. He knows the guy who brings him the plastic from Frankfurt. But his world is small. And the second he takes that one tiny step outwards, and which creates this kind of almost golfing tournament thing that he can follow throughout the world, which is going to change him and is going to, you know, the owners know his name. People know how he likes his coffee. He gets invited to the Armory thing, to the special after party. And what that's creating is, whether he likes it or not, in the sense it's a commercial endeavor, in the sense it's a PR catapult for him, but it's also immersing him in exposing him or her to certain works which are going to either make them go, yeah, okay, this is something I want, and I'm a vanity collector. You know, or like, you know, he has a greengrocer's list and is only looking for names. That kind of collector is never really going to do a lot for the specific scene, because no one will focus on a collection of 2 Matisses, 1 Picasso, and a Chagall. You know, a collector has to have character, and that character will only come about in the course of time. Mm-hmm. You can have these kind of almost like drop sculpture situations of like, yeah, oh wow, big boom. One problem is that there is an unfair playing ground when it comes to, let's say, you know, a New York gallery versus an Istanbul gallery, or a Berlin gallery versus, I don't know, a gallery from Bulgaria. There will be a lack of attention. But this introduction of this new kind of buying, the new collector, is changing the character of the fair in that way. You know, they're looking for more or less trophies and status symbols. The good collector will be the one who's going to take his time and is going to start to create actually a new artwork, really, by combining these very different and separate elements to create a new wealth. And so, you know, we're seeing the fair really doing both its job by giving them the virus, and then maybe they will pursue this and figure out a way that they will enhance their environment. The concern being that if it is more or less a financially motivated collector, the buy-sell problem, the biggest worry for us gallerists being, flipping of artworks, when someone buys something one week and sells it back the next, or is looking for a quick profit. Unfortunately, that's something that specifically for us in Turkey, in this kind of still fragile arts economy, is not something that really I would advise like Turkish collectors to be looking to be flipping. They need to be a little bit more tolerant. And right now, what's interesting is I think this year we're seeing now, after a wealth of 10 years, I'm seeing work that was in the fair now going into auction. And being the person who's actually sold them, quite a large number of the works I'm seeing now in auction, we're seeing what we placed it at and what we originally priced it at and what it is now looking to achieve. There has been a great growth, which makes us very, very happy. But, unfortunately, this will also spur collectors to go on to, really go cherry picking and look for the new hot thing, which is a characteristic reference of this kind of what we'd call the more trader mentality.
Yeah.
The kind of, now you have more business oriented people now. It's not as romantic as it used to be.
As a dealer, do you and your colleagues think about ways of avoiding that, like to avoid selling to certain people who are not really
You
in
have
it
to.
for the...
You have to. Unfortunately, in Turkey, it is not as common to refuse. I mean, I had a client who walked in who was in love with Baselitz. And this is a true story. I mean, he actually walked into the gallery with a briefcase full of cash. Not a good example, but and he wanted. There was this specific Baselitz he was after. He had the asking price, and the gallery refused to make sale because they did not know the gentleman. Unfortunately, in Turkey, that suitcase would have closed down the fair. I mean, it would have been done. It would have been over. Nobody would have questioned clear money. So there is that kind of a concern, and we want the galleries to be able to be more resilient to that kind of direct cash and be a little bit on the reserve. But in this kind of situation, you see that not a lot of galleries are kind of stopping that. Right now, one big problem for us in the Turkish scene is the fact that we don't really have a collaboration of colleagues. And these colleagues are the people who come together and will set standards. So hopefully we'll have this grow more and more, and that can only happen in collaboration with institutions and with things like fairs. Fairs who are choosing who comes into the fair, who is a member of the fair, how they treat their VIPs and their clients, and how that enhance will trickle down directly to the gallery. So we still have some ways to go, but we've improved tremendously from where we were at the beginning.
I think one of the reasons that sometimes there's a lack of transparency in the transactions is the high level of VAT we have on it.
Yes, yes.
When I was director of the fair, we had 3 issues that we brought up to the government. One was that they should reduce the VAT, which is 18%, which is extremely high. Although if you buy a book in Turkey, it's only 8%. Or if you go to the theater or cinema, the VAT is 8%, but somehow art is not considered a cultural product, so that's very weird. So, of course, we weren't successful. It's all, although you had the endorsement of the Minister of Culture, it's the Minister of Finance that decides these things. So that didn't happen. The second thing we wanted, of course, is for foreign galleries to have less hassles with the customs, which is pretty bad here.
They pay 25% tax for importing works.
That is still an ongoing issue. The third one, we've succeeded in having the government support through various funding for Turkish galleries to participate in foreign fairs, which is a big investment for galleries to go out and exhibit in a fair outside. So I think they're receiving, galleries that apply can get some kind of support.
We're getting funded specifically for a local fair. You know, this is something that really CI did make a big difference in the fact that although the return is very minimal, I mean, you know, you're capped out at, I think, it's something like close to 2,000 euros the gallery will get back for doing the fair. When the gallery is spending around 20,000 euros, it might not be a big difference.
See, it's again, I mean, if the galleries got together and became
Exactly.
like a union thing, they'd have more power. I mean, we did it as the fair.
Exactly.
And that was as much as you could achieve.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times we went to speak with the Minister of Culture. He said, yeah, you're right, we'll deal with it, but of course nothing happened. But anyway.
That's something where we find ourselves as Turkish galleries unfortunately, on a very uneven playing ground, specifically in an international realm. Whereas you'll have German galleries who are being sponsored by, I don't know, the municipality will be sponsoring it. There will be some kind of an art endowment. Or if it's a Dutch gallery, the Mondrian Foundation is very adamantly behind it, and the showing of Dutch artists. And I mean, I've even had support. I've shown a number of Dutch artists in my gallery and have received money from the Dutch government to help for the promotion of the works and so on and so forth. Never once have I received anything from the Turkish government for all the shows that I've done internationally, which makes our job a little difficult.
Yeah, it is very difficult. But then Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yes.
I keep saying that to myself all the time. But anyway, we've got 15 minutes left, so if there are any questions from our audience, which was patient enough to listen to us to this moment, if there's anything you want to ask us. One thing while the microphone's been, when I asked about these emerging classes, etc., it is a reality that the opening night here at CI, everybody wants to be there. I mean, it's the sort of in thing to be here.
Of course.
So that's, and there are people that show up that I know are not invited, you know, and some people that you always see in society pages, then an actress, for example, that I know very well, suddenly she showed up and she had like 16 photographers around her. It was a photo op for her, which she planned to do it here because this is where you need to be seen. So I don't mind it actually. That's exactly how you're going to convert new collectors into the sort of the battle. Yes, please.
Türkçe sorabilir miyim?
Tabii.
Dolayısıyla kulaklıklar işliyor herhalde, değil mi? Tamam. Bu modern sanatla contemporary, yani güncel sanat arasında biraz mesafe açıldı gibi. Sanat dünyası modern sanatla contemporary sanatı birbirine doğru bir şekilde bağlayamadı mı acaba?
Doğru bir şekilde?
Yani o geçiş olamadı mı modern sanattan contemporary sanata? Yani bu bir design sorunu olarak, sanatın dizaynı sorunu olarak.
The gentleman is asking that there's a division now, clear division between contemporary art and modern art. Could there not be something designed so as to bring them together? Is that the question? Do you think?
I think something similar to that.
Yeah.
First of all, should I answer in Turkish or English?
Turkish, yeah, Turkish.
Tamam. It's going to be unfair to
That's
you,
okay.
I'm sorry.
No, we can explain it to you later.
Modern ve çağdaş sanat veya güncel sanat veya bilmem ne sanat. Bunlar aslında lütfen ilk önce bunun tamamıyla ticari bir bölünme zorunluluğu olduğunu anlayın. Yani modern sanat belli bir şekilde belli bir tarihi görür. Bu aslında sadece işin resale value'sunda ve aslında bu işle ilgilenen kurumların zoraki olarak oluşturdukları alanlar gibi. Türk sanatının uluslararası müzayede kurumları tarafından incelendiğinde İslam eserleri altında geçer ki bu absürt bir şey. Ama kategori bu. Modern, çağdaş, contemporary aslında modern sanatla yapıldığında contemporary ve bana göre de bu böyle bir farkı yaratmak saçma.
Biraz daha
Ama-
açayım mı soruyu?
Lütfen çünkü biraz
Tamam.
genişti.
Şimdi modern bir sanat eserini alacağız.
Evet.
Bunu bir proses uygulayacağız buna.
Proses?
Yani bir şekilde dönüştüreceğiz.
Satın alma eyleminden.
Hayır, yani
It's okay.
sanatsal dönüştürme. Bir çeşit mimari uygulama yapacağız. Çizimsel bir uygulama ile bir
Bu
modern...
prezentasyonundan mı bahsediyorsunuz? Sunumundan mı?
Copy paste de diyelim ki yapıştıracağız, sündüreceğiz, döndüreceğiz ve birbirine yapıştırarak contemporary bir sanat yapacağız diyelim, modern sanattan.
Ha, anladım.
Şimdi o zaman hümaniteyle bağlarını da kaybetmemiş olacak çağdaş sanat. Yani şimdi bir şey daha söyleyeyim. Bu contemporary sanat aslında bir şekilde mimarların eline geçti. Yani tüm şey fine art bir şekilde bir mimari çalışma haline dönüştü.
Ya mimariyle diyaloğu vardır mutlaka sanatın.
Yani mimari
Ama
artık ticaret oldu.
eline
Yani
geçti cümlesi biraz şey oluyor.
mimarlar el koydu. Eline geçti demeyelim. Mimarlar el koydu olaya. Ve dolayısıyla orada bir fine art'la bir kopukluk oluştu. Bu aynı zamanda sanatın dizaynının da bir sorunu bence ve mimari modern sanattan çağdaş sanata, fakat tabii modern sanatta mesela bir resmin dört taraftan olması var. Modernizm genelde bir resmi dörde bölmek ister. Yani dört taraftan da resim olmasını ister. Onun için fırça
Ben bu
darbeleriyle...
sorunuzu anlayamadım, kusura bakmayın. Soru ne?
Soru sanat daha doğru dizayn edilseydi, yani sanatı dizayn edenler daha doğru dizayn etselerdi, modern sanattan contemporary sanata geçişte bir geçit bulunsaydı,
Ya,
o zaman moderniteyle
Kopuş
olan
yok
bağları
ki.
da yitirilmeyecekti. Şimdi bir sürü şey geliyor, eleştiri geliyor çağdaş sanata birçok yönden. O zaman hümaniteyi bir şekilde koptu. Moderniteden kopunca, ayırınca olayı, halbuki bir geçiş olabilseydi desem.
Ben biraz müsaade ederseniz bir tarihçi kökenimle buna bir bakayım. Yani şimdi bu bahsettiğimiz etiketler aslında tarihsel bir takım şeyler. Yani işte ne deniyor? 1453'te Rönesans başladı. Sanki o dakika birisi düğmeye bastı.
ya bir ofon yok yani. aynen.
Yani bence bir kere bütün bu dönemler birbirinin içinde akan dönemler. Tek farkı yani modern sanat 1925'te birisi modern sanat yaptığı zaman o anda contemporary'di. Yani
İşte, aynen.
o dönemin sanatı oydu. Bugünkü aslında benim kafamdaki bu modernle contemporary, yani ben işte Art Basel'e gidince yukarı geziyorum ama sonra inip aşağıda zemin kattaki modern bizim babadan kalma modernleri bakıyorum. Çünkü kafam orada kalmış benim. Ben şu şekilde bakıyorum. Ayrımı şu şekilde görüyorum. Modernizm bütün tabuları yıktı. Bütün kodları yıktı. Hiçbir şey kalmadı. Yani öyle inanılmaz bir özgürlük alanı yarattı. Çağdaş sanatta bu özgürlük alanı içinde çalışmalarını sürdürmek zorunda ve bana sorarsanız çok zor. Yani herhangi bir kısıtlamanın olmadığı bir ortamda yaratıcılık yapmak, hele bir de düşünürseniz eskiden 5000 sanatçı varsa şimdi 5 milyon sanatçı var. Farklı bir şey yapmak, yeni tabular yıkmak, yeni bir şey, yani çünkü aslında sonuçta sanat dediğiniz bir transgression boyutu da olan, bir misyonu olan bir şey. Çağdaş sanat onun için bence üretilmesi, yaratılması en zor olan sanat diye bakıyorum. Çünkü modernistler zaten her şeyi yıkmışlar, etmişler. Yani bütün o bildiğimiz Rönesans'tan beri gelen kodları yıkmışlar. Çünkü sanat her zaman öyle olmuş. Yani Rönesans'ta da aslında sanatçı peşinde, transgression, yani işin kuralları bükme, çaktırmadan şeyler yapma, hep o oyun insanlık tarihinde hep olmuş.
Şeyden de bahsedebiliriz. Yani I would consider like Dadaism to be now the foremost of contemporary.
Yeah, exactly.
In that sense, I mean,
In that moment,
I
it's
think
contemporary.
people are now, at this point in time, they are riffing so horribly off Dadaist, period works, which is really about taking the piss of the uptight kind of portrait kind of tradition of where art was more or less filling both the vacuum of now what has been filled by photography, both as something that's a document something that's a decoration, and Dadaism refusing this
Reproducing.
whole use of it you know, they were way ahead of the situation. So in that sense, ironically, Dadaism now falling into a modern category, it questions the title of what is modern and what is contemporary. So in that sense, I would say there is absolutely no part in which there was an inability to transition from one, exactly like you said. There is no period in which one cuts off and the other transitions.
That's
So
not how history
Even the
is
Museum
made.
of Modern
That's-
Art grapples with
That's,
that.
that's ideological history, when
Yes.
you put
Exactly.
points, which is easy for students when they study history, so they know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Sorunuza yanıt vermediğimizin farkındayız ama yani ama güzel bir tartışma başlattınız. Çok teşekkür ederiz. Başka soru var mı? Any other questions?
Okay, that's it. Hey.
Thank you for listening to
Let
us.
me end this with an anecdote of another panel that I was in about 5 years ago in Berlin. Since CI has this, had this, I don't know if they're still on, we had an agreement with the Akademie der Kunst where we did joint projects. One of the panel that I was invited to moderate was between a Brazilian curator, Argentinian curator, a Turkish curator, and a German professor of art history. And there were actually, it was on the occasion of the opening of 2 exhibitions in the Akademie der Kunst, one of contemporary Brazilian art and the other one Argentine. Very, very good art, by the way. So after looking at this, we sat down and the Argentinian lady, the curator, she was talking about the evolution of modern art in Argentina, the Brazilian was doing it, and suddenly the German gentleman says, "Why are you guys talking about modernism? This is a purely European phenomenon. Who are you to talk about modernism?" And I said, "Sir, you're just opening a can of worms. Let's pretend we didn't hear this, you know." So there is still this mentality of appropriation of these groups of people that they think they're the center and they think this is mine, you can't touch it, you know. This is, who are you to talk about modernism?
That's been an issue for us as well, for Turkish galleries when we were dealing with work that was considered to be of a weighty nature. Strangely enough, it was a couple of different German curators and colleagues who sat there and said, "You guys have such nice handicrafts and you do such nice traditional,
Exactly.
beautiful colors. Why you know why are you getting into this human condition stuff? Why are you dealing with that? You leave that to us. You guys keep doing your traditional arts and crafts."
Yeah, your
so
killings,
there is a little bit of a
Yeah.
problem there.
Remember the exhibition we did in 1995 in Copenhagen?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Beautiful exhibition of 11 Turkish artists, contemporary artists, in a very wonderful setting. I think the Danish were very gracious with us. They gave us the Charlottenburg Palace. 800 people showed up at the vernissage, at the opening, which was on a Saturday lunchtime, by the way. It was quite weird. That's when they do it. And we had excellent reviews in the papers the next morning. But there was always this question, how do we know this is Turkish? You know, because there were no kilims in it or no carpet. They loved the artwork, but they couldn't figure out how this came from Turkey. You know,
They didn't find that the stigma of the assumption, this you know, this kind of people orient themselves by cliches and stereotypes. And that expectancy that's created, you know, a pack of Camel cigarettes killed me in the United States, basically. You know, you see a camel, a pyramid, and Turkish domestic blend on the back. So people start to have this expectancy of what they're going to see. And that's still something that I think, for our next dialogues, we should talk about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all
Çok
so much for
teşekkürler.
coming.
Sağ olun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.